Have you ever stood beneath a sky full of stars on Christmas Eve and wondered, if love were real, would it come down to meet us? What if the story of Christmas wasn't just tradition, but a whisper of something deeper? A longing to be understood, to be reached, to be saved. This is the story of a man who didn't believe until one silent night. Something changed. Once upon a time, there was a man who looked upon Christmas as a lot of humbug. He wasn't a Scrooge. He was a kind and decent person, generous to his family, upright in all his dealings with other men. But he didn't believe all that stuff about incarnation, which churches proclaim at Christmas, and he was too honest to pretend that he did. "I am truly sorry to distress you," he told his wife, who was a faithful churchgoer, "but I simply cannot understand this claim that God becomes man. It doesn't make any sense to me." On Christmas Eve, his wife and children went to church for the midnight service. He declined to accompany them. "I'd feel like a hypocrite," he explained. "I'd rather stay at home, but I'll wait up for you." Shortly after his family drove away in the car, snow began to fall. He went to the window and watched the flurries getting heavier and heavier. "If we must have Christmas," he thought, "it's nice to have a white one." He went back to his chair by the fireside and began to read his newspaper. A few minutes later, he was startled by a thudding sound. It was quickly followed by another, then another. He thought that someone must be throwing snowballs at his living room window. When he went to the front door to investigate, he found a flock of birds, huddled miserably in the storm. They had been caught in the storm and in a desperate search for shelter had tried to fly through his window. "I can't let these poor creatures lie there and freeze," he thought. "But how can I help them?" Then he remembered the barn where the children's pony was stabled. It would provide a warm shelter. He put on his coat and galoshes and tramped through the deepening snow to the barn. He opened the door wide and turned on a light, but the birds didn't come in. Food would lure them in, he thought. So he hurried back to the house for breadcrumbs, which he sprinkled on the snow to make a trail into the barn. "Tu is this mai." The birds ignored the breadcrumbs and continued to flop around helplessly in the snow. He tried shooing them into the barn by walking around and waving his arms. They scattered in every direction, except into the warm, lighted barn. "They find me a strange and terrifying creature," he said to himself, "and I can't seem to think of any way to let them know they can trust me. If only I could be a bird myself for a few minutes. Perhaps I could lead them to safety." Just at that moment, the church bells began to ring. He stood silent for a while, listening to the bells pealing the glad tidings of Christmas. Then he sank to his knees in the snow. "Now I do understand," he whispered. "Now I see why you had to do it." Closing message. And so, in the hush of falling snow, he knelt, not because he was forced to believe, but because he finally understood that love, to truly reach us, must become one of us. That sometimes, the only way to lead others to warmth is to step into their cold. What storms have you faced, wishing someone could understand you? What light have you ignored, thinking it was too far or too strange? And if love came quietly, humbly, would you recognize it? Or would you need to become still enough to see? Let this Christmas not be just a season, but a moment of awakening. A time to ask not only what we believe, but why it matters that someone once chose to become like us, so we could find our way home.